Good time of the day to everyone who is watching this video and happen to land on the website of the project Dataset. And Dataset is an Erasmus Plus project that aims to enhance entrepreneurship education. And we're trying to do it by improving the ability of vocational institutions and universities, entrepreneurship educators, so also business advisors, to teach and develop and actually help their students and the clients to understand smart data, big data, data in general. So my name is Alexandra Zinovieva, and I'm the manager of European projects at University Industry Innovation Network. And we are one of the partners of this project, and I'll be your host for today. And today in this video segment, we welcome our guest, Julia Baldauf, who is a data scientist working in R&D, and we will chat with her about the importance of developing your data skills and maybe some insights into how to start this journey as well. And yeah, we will touch upon her background and see what insights we can learn. Thank you very much, Julia, for being with us today. And why don't we kick it off with hearing your story of how an experimental nanoscientist finds her way in data science.
Thanks, Alexandra. I'm happy to be here, and I hope I can give people a bit more insight about how I basically moved from experimental physicist into a data scientist. Because I studied physics, and I received both my master's and PhD in experimental physics in the field of nanotechnology. But obviously, the data that I collected, I already had to analyze. And luckily, I chose as a minor during my studies programming. So I already had some skills that I could use to analyze data, to automate my analysis scripts, and to find correlations in data. When I started working for tech and biotech companies in the R&D department, I realized fairly quickly that all the exciting projects actually involve a lot of data science. So I started working on these projects and learned the skills basically along the way. And so I slowly moved from this experimental physicist to a more theoretical one, where I was first modeling and simulating experiments. But then I finally ended up applying machine learning to various data sets. So just to give you some examples, I developed a classifier to identify stents in medical images. I also identified protein small molecule interactions. So I predicted them based on biophysical data. And I also wrote scripts to just help people in other departments. For example, I helped the quality department to automate their analysis scripts. And so now I mainly work as a data scientist, holding project management and team leadership roles.
Oh, that sounds exciting, and it's interesting how you mentioned that the most exciting projects actually involve data scientists. But data science is a profession, right? So we see right now that data analytics is becoming a prominent profession on its own. So why do you think developing the basic data skills as just a transversal competence for anybody without this specific goal of becoming, well, you became a data scientist, but there are plenty of people who probably wouldn't become a data scientist after a couple of courses. Why do you think it's important, regardless of the work sector that you are involved in? And what could be the opportunities for the individuals to just develop those skills?
Well, I guess we really live in a digital world by now, right? So everyone has data to their disposal, right? And data can just give everyone more insight. So for example, the marketing department can decide if their marketing campaign was successful by correlating it with sales figures. If you look at the production line, if they collect data along their workflow, they can basically see if they have bottlenecks and then improve the workflow. The insight will also come from data there. Accounting and finance departments, they can use historical data that will help them predict how the next year will go, right? So every department and every sector has lots of data they can use to get more insight, right? And not just that you will do a better job because you're actually looking at data that you have to your disposal. You can also make better decisions, right? There is a nice saying that is from a data scientist. It's called, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. And I really like that because it just highlights that with data, you can really convince people because you have facts, right? You're not just someone who thinks, I think we could do better if we do this and that. No, you say, and we can do it better because if we look at this, the data shows us that we actually, I don't know, have less sales in this month. So perhaps we should look at that, right? As a very simple example, right? And not just that you do a better job, that you can drive better decisions. You will also differentiate yourself from other people in the same profession, right? Because you have a very relevant skill these days. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunities by picking up some data science skills that you can basically just become better at your job.
You just touched upon, you just mentioned that this beautiful phrase, without data is just an opinion. So it does apply to not only the professional settings, I guess, to the personal life as well. When you want to substantiate your opinion, you do need to, collect the evidence and analyze the data. I was wondering, because you've just also mentioned that if you're in marketing, or it just depends on the kind of department and what kind of needs you have at that specific company or the specific field. I was wondering whether there is a big difference between data-informed decision-making and to what extent it's also established in larger tech companies where you've worked and maybe in smaller SMEs, and to what extent that actually matters.
Well, so first of all, this it's from William Deming. So he's a data scientist. And as you said, it applies to everything, right? We shouldn't just listen to someone and repeat this opinion. We actually should make sure that it's based on data. Fake news is a big topic right now, right? But coming back to the to comparing large tech and SMBs, I think everyone, of course, is aware that with data you can make much better decisions. But one big difference is that in large tech companies, you already have a lot of data to your disposal, right? And we call it structured data. So a lot of these large tech companies probably have softwares like SAP or Salesforce, where they basically just like check all their processes. So if they are interested in some data, they can basically just export it easily, right? SMBs a lot of times use Excel sheets, like that's what I've seen, right? They use a lot of different Excel sheets. So the data most likely is not very structured. It's not consistent over time. People have named things differently. And so it gets way harder to, first of all, get to the data that you want. And then of course you need time, right? In larger companies, they have way more resources. They might have data scientists already hired or a data science team that can help you. Whereas in the SMBs, it's basically up to the individual to kind of get some skills to do that. They can't just call someone up. And so I guess this is why it is so important that individuals start picking up some of these skills, because it's probably very unlikely that that the resources are there, right? So I think that's the main difference. So I encourage everyone to pick some data science skills.
That's what we're trying to do with the project as well. And that leads perfectly to the next question I have to you. And that's about the key skills that are important to collect, understand, and analyze data if you're starting off. And maybe from also your personal experience, because yes, you said that you already had some programming experience before, but I was wondering if, let's say, you look at me and I'm not a programming genius, but I would like to start off that journey myself. So what kind of advice you would give me on what would be the first skills to start developing?
So I guess one of the most important skills you probably already have, because what is super important is meta expertise. So whenever you look at data science problems, you apply them to a certain field, like let's say, stick with marketing and sales, for example, right? The best programmer will struggle to, first of all, formulate a meaningful problem and then to collect and understand the right data, because the programmer just doesn't know what's going on, right? So meta expertise is really one of the, in my eyes, one of the very important skills that you start off properly, right? You're actually asking the right question, and you also know how to look at the data. You understand the data already because you are the expert in the field, right? Then, of course, there are technical skills that you will need if you look at data, right? You probably have to start programming at some stage. I mean, Excel can help you a lot at the beginning, and it's good to get started, right? But the more you will try to do things, the more you probably find its limitations. So there's no data scientist who's using Excel. But there's two main programming languages that data scientists use. So one is R and the other one is Python. I've been mainly using Python just because the people who I worked with were working in Python, and a lot of tutorials and courses out there actually in Python. So there's, the community is huge, and it's very easy to start with that. And so I guess you probably want to kind of start looking into learning Python or R. It comes with amazing packages that make life as a data scientist easy. So the hard programming has been already done for you, right? There's packages that you use, and you basically just have to apply them to your data. So the main time for a data scientist is always getting the data, preparing the data, cleaning the data. The analysis actually takes then the least time. It's more than, again, about understanding, and that is very important now. You have to have an understanding of statistics and apply a lot of common sense to ensure that the results are robust, right? So I think the meta expertise that I mentioned, then of course some programming skills with the packages that come, like let's say Python, and then you have to have a bit of an idea of statistics to understand that you're basically not just, you know, overfitting your algorithm to a small data set you have, right? Things like that. So that, I would say, are the key skills to get started.
Well, yeah, that sounds like it's actually doable. That's quite encouraging, you know. But something very interesting that you mentioned, that you have to apply some common sense as well. That you arrive actually to the robust conclusions, and that's where there is this controversy that we have faced in our project as well, and with some other partners that we have worked with. It's about this challenges in popularizing general data skills training for non-professionals. So because it's very easy to make a mistake or to arrive to the conclusion that is not well, robust, I'd say by your language. And yes, especially hearing from the data scientists who have been working in the field for a really long time, or they have a classical training, or they have a very strong training, there is a little bit of negativity, I'd say, towards general population trying to, you know, do the work of a professional. Yeah. So I was wondering what you think about it, and whether you see it as a challenge as well, and how these, if these are the challenges, they could be addressed. And shall we actually continue still trying to develop our data training skills?
So I mean, I like what you said, because there's definitely a bit of a challenge and something that we have to look out for. But I think it also depends how you approach a data science problem. I think what I've also seen a few times is that people kind of already know what they want to get out of an algorithm, or like when they apply data science. So they're basically just using data science to get their point across, but they're not actually doing data science, right? And I think this is a problem, right? Because everyone now wants to do some data science, have AI do something. And as I said, there's amazing tutorials that help you to get started fairly quickly, right? You can just apply it to your data, and then you just go like, and it gives you the result you want, right? Otherwise you probably would have just ignored it. And then it gives you a result that you want, but you've never really tested it. And this is why I said it's super important to also have a bit of an idea of statistics, and kind of just to understand how to ensure that you are basically not overfitting an algorithm, right? And so it's called data science after all, right? So it is a science. You have to really be diligent, and you have to question and constantly challenge what you're doing. But I mean, this for me is also common sense. If you really are a person who wants to solve problems and understand something, you're gonna approach it that way, right? But yeah, unfortunately, people also just go out and apply it and basically just bring their point across, ignoring that they are probably just overfitting 3 data points and not actually seeing a trend, right? So I think it can be addressed by talking about it more in the tutorials and all the stuff, so that you really talk more about statistics and yeah, remind people that they have to make sure, is the data set the right thing? A lot of times it's not being talked a lot about the data, it's mainly about then the algorithms, because this is why you do this tutorial. They probably take it for granted that you have a good balanced data set, right? And you can also now do a lot of data science courses online, so you can become a data scientist. And a lot of times they just mention the prerequisites, that you should have like some idea of statistics. Perhaps it should be just included in the courses, right? So really just have a couple of hours on statistics to refresh everyone's memory. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I like how you said that data science is still a science. So there is definitely, if you're going into that, there should definitely be the methods that are proven, and you also understand what you're trying to get out of it. And yes, I guess, but what you just mentioned, that people are trying to arrive to the conclusions that they already have in their hypothesis anyways, just to prove, that's probably something that not necessarily can be changed by the data training, but just raising awareness, yes. But it's more on the individual level. It's understanding what are your real needs. You know, why are you doing that? You know, why are you trying to derive conclusions from your data?
And that also happens
really want to use them?
That also happens to scientists. I mean, there's always this bias. You already ask a question in a way that you get the answer. But I think with data science, we don't just have to look at this like amazing AI or prediction algorithms. For me, data science already starts if you start looking at data and plotting it, right? A lot of times if you plot data, you already get a lot of insight, right? And then you haven't applied any algorithm, right? You just have to ensure that you have enough data points, right? That it's representative. But that is already like something where you can start. So you just start choosing simple projects, right? Like just let's look at some data, and then normally when you start, you kind of think, we could also look at this other data set, or we could compare it, or we could correlate it, right? And that at the beginning is just by visualizing data, right? Just looking at a column, you normally don't really get a feeling of data, but as soon as you start visualizing it, and this is what you can do with Python, for example, with the visualization packages. And this is how you can get like basic skills by, you know, not already doing crazy stuff, but just doing very simple things to get more insight from your data.
Yes, that's a really great advice, actually. Start small. Just learn how to try to understand the small thing that you have, and then moving further. I was wondering about your maybe personal challenges, well, professional at that moment, and maybe personal in trying to develop your own data science skills, since I understand, yes, you have the background in programming, yes, you were excited and interested in doing quite a lot of data analysis in your work anyways, but still you did have to do some training and learn on the go. So I was wondering, what were your major challenges and how did you overcome them?
It might sound funny, but my major challenge were probably getting data to to apply my new learned skills on. When you run tutorials and you learn things, they normally provide you a lot of data, right? And I normally chose tutorials that were similar to problems I wanted to work on, because they already give you working code that is like a great starting point. But then you thought, then you basically just go out and get the data. But that sounds, that was basically the main challenge, to then make sure that you get enough data, because machine learning, if you really want to do the prediction, really just makes sense if you have like a lot of data. I'm not talking about 100 points, it's more like 1,000, 10,000 kind of data points, more 10,000. And so it's kind of then interesting, how do you get this data, right? And how do you get this data in a meaningful way? So the challenges for me, I mean, of course, I had already programming backgrounds. It was not on the technical side. It was rather than on the on getting the data. Because with the technical side, this is quite amazing, because I mean, it's all online, this data science, and there's like this amazing communities, right? One of them is Stack Overflow. It's a community of developers, and they are basically there to exchange knowledge. And whenever you run into a programming problem, let's say, you can just basically Google the error code or like your question, and you won't be the first one who has a question. I was always amazed, right? Like, I'm not the first one. Someone else ran into this problem, and then people already answered and helped people out. So there's like this amazing community out there of data scientists that are all online. They're helping each other out. And they are also developing these packages that are all open source, right? So you can do all of this for free. There's nothing you need to pay. And because it's millions of people using it, they also ensure it's very good. So it will all work. So it's really, my challenge was then getting good data and getting enough data.
And how did you do that, actually? How did you get the enough data for training yourself? I'm just wondering.
It really comes down, you have to find collaborations. For example, when I worked in the medical imaging sector, you just have to start working with hospitals, right? What is also great, because it comes with the meta expertise as well, right? So yeah, a lot of cool projects. You basically always see collaborations between data scientists and the people who produce the data, right?
Yeah. No, okay, thanks. That sounds great. I hope that's that's the next step actually for what we were doing in Dataset project. We were establishing more of the basic understanding of data and why to use it, and how to identify your needs and how to progress further. But working with big data sets and actually going into programming is the next step. So I hope that our audience would be inspired and already start thinking about the collaborations, potential ways to actually go further and train themselves. Where do I get that big data? Okay, I have to start thinking about it now. Yeah. So thank you for prompting that. And I think that probably would be my last question. But I was wondering, what do you think about the future of data science and data skills training? We've heard the opinion that data science, not data science, but data scientists will not exist in the future because everybody will understand how to use data. But at the same time, we heard another opinion that quite the opposite. So yeah, I was wondering what you think.
Well, I do believe that data science is a promising and a growing field, right? And it will reach into all work sectors, as we have already touched on before. So I think there will be always a shortage of data scientists and data science skills. But as I said, luckily there is already a vast amount of online data skills training out there, which works really well. And especially now in the sudden change of the training environment, that everything was shifted online during the Corona shutdowns. It really showed how well it works, right? And how many people struggled to shift their teaching online. And so I think there will be more and more platforms, like Udacity is one. Udacity is offering data scientist nano degrees. They work together with industry. So these degrees are actually respected by industries. And I think there will be more and more platforms like that, just because of the demand. And for industry, it's super important to find the talent, right? So they will support this. So these courses come fairly cheap as well. And as I said, all the programming and packages is open source. So it is actually amazing, because it is really not a lot of investment other than time and interest to become a data scientist or to start the journey. So really everyone can just give it a go, right? So I think, yeah, everyone will probably become perhaps a data scientist or work together with a data scientist. But I do believe that collaboration is also key, that you have people who really have the true understanding of the statistics and the diligence, and then the meta expertise who produce the data, right? So,
yeah, so that everybody's on the same page, actually.
Yeah.
Well, they might be doing their very specific work, but they understand what others are doing, and that's how they come to the well-informed conclusions and then drive the decisions out of them. Well, that's a brilliant conclusion actually to our conversation, I think. And thank you so much once again, Julia, for taking your time and for sharing your perspective. It was a pleasure to actually hear your story, and you're so inspirational in that respect, because you also prove in a way that, well, the skills, the data skills, we'll call them this way, smart data skills, can be developed just if you want to do it yourself. It's all doable. There is a community, and it also maybe it matters what your background is, but not that significantly. If you really want to do it, you should just give it a go and be just inspired. And you're one of this person who also inspires. Thank you so much. And I hope we could see each other once again in another interview. And in the meantime, I wish you a very, very nice day.
Sure. Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.